Welcome to the Wings Event Center in Kalamazoo, Michigan. We refer to it as the Zoo, home of the Kalamazoo Curling Club. The 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. 16 teams vying for the right to represent the United States at the 2023 World Mixed Doubles Championships in Gangneung, South Korea. Special treat for the viewers tonight, coming onto the broadcast commentary crew, live from frigid Canada. Chelsea Carey joining myself, Tyler George. Chelsea, thanks so much for being a part of this.
Thanks for having me, Ty. I'm really excited to be here. This is going to be a great game.
Two-time Scotties champion, Chelsea Carey. Here we see the standings. Pool A with all games completed. Persinger Plies will be the number 1 seed out of their pool at 7-0 undefeated record. Hamilton and Hamilton at 5-2 will be the 2 seed, and Schuster and Geving, the 3 seed, also at 5-2 by virtue of Schuster's victory head-to-head over, Hamilton's victory head-to-head over Geving and Schuster. Game is underway. We will show you the standings for our pool shortly, and our feature game tonight, Sarah Anderson and Andrew Stopera at 4-2, facing off against Kirstin and Gabe Nickel at 3-3. The Nickels need a victory in this game to force a tiebreaker for the playoff round. Anderson and Stopera will advance to the playoffs with a win. Chelsea, we've seen a lot of curl on this ice throughout the course of the week. The teams taking Broome out into the middle of the 12-foot for a lot of these draws, but very weight-sensitive. We'll get back to that in a second with our standings in Pool B. TC and Dropkin undefeated 6-0. Anderson, Stopera, Strauss, Casper 4-2 can punch their ticket to the playoff round with a victory. Anderson, Richardson, Nickel, both needing wins to force any type of tiebreak situation. Mulaney, Sinnott, Bookout, Wiesa, and Podol Perry all eliminated from playoff contention. So, Chelsea, we were talking about the curl that we're getting throughout the course of the competition. We are getting almost mid-12s to the button. Speed almost up to 15 seconds hog to hog, but really weight sensitive, so it rewards good throws. Anything back 8, back 12 runs considerably straighter than T-line weight.
It's the kind of ice you want to see because, you want the curl, but you also want to be penalized for a bad throw. And there is some types of ice conditions where you can go out as wide as you want and you can stab that release as much as you want and throw it heavy and it'll curl and die and then you make the shot. Well, that's not really what we want. That's not rewarding good throws. So this is the kind of ice conditions that in a perfect world we would all want to see all the time. So I've been very impressed from what I've watched with how great the ice has been here in Kalamazoo.
Yeah, and a rare occasion, Chelsea, where the players are uniformly supportive of the conditions. We really haven't seen or heard of any issues with the ice. It's been consistent throughout, very little change in any of the speed or the amount of curl. So the players, they're aware of the weight-sensitive spots and the fact that the break point has really been closer to back 12, back line than it is to that normal hack or board weight that we might see with this type of speed.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's ideal from what I've seen and watched and listening to you describe it. I think that any top player would tell you that in a perfect world, that's what you would like the ice to be. So it should be a lot of fun. It's in mixed doubles. The nice thing about mixed doubles is because there's less rocks thrown per end and only one sweeper, it doesn't break down quite as much. So it's nice to see that speed hold up, and then you're not having to guess late in a game. Are we getting into the slide path? Is it going to fudge and die? Is it going to run nice? It can become a bit of a guessing game, but in doubles we don't often see that. And here this week, from what I've watched anyway, I haven't seen it once. It looks like it's incredible ice.
Gabe Nickel playing the intern bump, trying to change the angles up. Almost 2 red rocks in the 4-foot for Anderson and Stopera. Sarah and Andrew have the hammer in this first end. 3 stones to go for them.
Nose freeze, it seems okay.
Your nose freeze, okay. The call from Andrew. Playing this in-turn draw again, trying to come to the nose of their own stone. And with all that shrapnel in the back of the forefoot, Chelsea, anything above the tee line right now in scoring position is really in good shape for Anderson and Stopera.
Yeah, unfortunately for Gabe Nickel, they're sort of left this wall of yellow rocks that aren't helpful to you at the back of the forefoot here. So it's hard to put this on a terrible angle for Andrew Stopera, but if you put it on a really good one, you might cash in big in this first end here.
Andrew trying to carry this rock all the way down to the top of the 4s. Stop just a hair short in the top 8s, but not a bad position. And Chelsea, we had a game with the Nickels earlier today and started off very slow, got down by 5 points after 2 ends, and then took a 4 in the 3rd end to get back in the game. So they kind of are a body language type of team, Gabe Nickel in particular, that things are going well. You might see some hopping around, some fist pumps and things like that. And a couple of early makes for this team would be really important to not get behind the 8 ball as they did earlier today.
And there is an opportunity here. You're probably not going to get into a scoring position necessarily, but to give up 1 at this point, if your team nickel it would be a pretty huge win based on how this looks. So if you can come off this red, chisel kind of anywhere in behind those 2 red rocks, it's not going to go anywhere. So you have the opportunity here. This is a huge shot for Gabe Nickel.
Trying to play this in-turn hit and roll to the pocket, as Chelsea mentioned. Does nestle in behind, and not a bad angle for that stone to be on the back of the button. Anderson and Stopera still sitting 1, and they do have that stone on the top of the 8 foot to tap up.
Yeah, back 4, back 8.
Yep.
Probably rolled a little further than he would have liked and moved that back yellow rock that now is just biting the back of the forefoot, maybe a touch further than they would have preferred, but still limiting the damage at this point, which essentially is all you could have hoped for out of that shot. So pretty good result there for Gabe Nickel. And now for Andrew Stopera, try to tap these around and hopefully probably sit 2. Even if you don't sit 2, if you set the angles up really well, then you'd still be pretty happy with that.
Stopera playing this in-turn draw bump, trying to get to a second counter in the top of the forefoot. If they bump this hard enough to move the yellow rock off the back of the button, they can sit 2.
Back 8. Back 8.
Stopera calling back 8 on the weight. Really like to move these stones if they can. Keep that angle too. Doesn't move it far enough to get second, but a great angle again. And that red rock, Chelsea, looks like you may need dynamite to get it out of there with these angles.
Yeah, you need about 3 more shots, I think, before that's going anywhere. That's
right.
That's not, like I said, not sitting 2, but leaving the angles as perfect as he just did is every bit as good as sitting 2. He didn't need to quite yet. So now huge pressure here for Kirstin to you got to make a perfect corner freeze, and even if you do, I'm not sure that it's that good because he can blast those red rocks back into it. So we'll see where this ends up. I think actually in a perfect world you might freeze on that back forefoot yellow just on the inside and sit second and third. Might be your best result.
Sure. And Chelsea, I can tell you, I've watched more mixed doubles this week than I have in my entire life, probably. And I feel like I'm still learning as I go, too. But for somebody that's played as much as you have and had the success you've had in mixed doubles, I've learned how important it is with the short ends to create situations where it takes, as you just mentioned, more than 1 shot to move a stone. So you're wasting, even if it takes 2 shots, to move 1 rock around, that's 40% of your throws for an entire end. So positioning a rock in a place where your opponent is going to need 2 shots to move it, so important in these shorter ends.
Yeah, and it sneaks up on you pretty quick. There's you can probably find footage of me and Colin and myself playing mixed doubles at the Continental Cup in Las Vegas in 2017, where I forgot it was already my shot. Because the end goes so fast that we're standing there and we've agreed on the shot, and I'm waiting for him to get in the hack and throw it, and he's like, it's you. I was like, oh, okay. So you go down and you throw it. But yeah, it sneaks up on you really quick. So it kind of works both ways. It's a bit of a double-edged sword where you can get yourself into trouble really quick, but also if you make one good freeze and it takes them 2 shots to get it out of there, well, they're only throwing 5. So to your point, the ends being shorter has that effect kind of in both ways. So it's definitely a very different game. It takes a bit, and that's what we always have struggled with. You play a lot of men's and women's, and you haven't played a lot of doubles, then you have to kind of switch your mindset a little bit, because it is a very, very different approach to strategy and that kind of thing. So yeah, to your point, if you can do anything that makes them take a couple shots, then you're in good shape.
That long raise attempt by Sarah Anderson barely skates by, so it will be a single point for Anderson and Stopera in the first. After one end to play, Sarah Anderson, Andrew Stopera leading 1-0. With the start of the second end here at the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships, feature game final draw of Pool B. Sarah Anderson, Andrew Stopera. It's Gabe Nickel, Kirstin Nickel. I'd like to talk to you a little bit once again about Warm Room Hero. Is your curling club website clunky and unworkable? Are you tired of your club relying on social media because your website just does not work for your members? Finally, the curling management software your club has been waiting for is here. Check out Warm Room Hero at curling.club today. Again, 1-0 Anderson and Stopera leading Nickel and Nickel. It's Tyler George with two-time Scotties champion Chelsea Carey. Remotes from the barren wastelands of Canada. Where are you at right now, Chelsea?
I'm at home in Calgary, and it's not a blizzard here, so I don't know that we are the barren wastelands. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you're winning right now.
We did have
Kalamazoo is a mess.
And I think parts of Canada are getting it. The East Coast is getting hit pretty hard, but we had it last week. But right now, it's quite lovely outside.
It's been great here basically most of the week up until today. Now we're getting that between 6 and 10 inches of snow that's forecasted, and it's coming down in full force. So nice draw to the top of the button by Sarah Anderson to get this end started, and Kirstin Nickel trying to follow that down with a freeze of her own. Chelsea, as you can see, that rock turning over really hard. We've been using the logos out there as reference points for the speed because it's been so consistent all week. And a nice tap there by Kirstin, but the break point generally for rocks that have been stopping in the 4-foot circles around the tee has been just before that Columbia logo, the blue lettering that's on the sheet. If it doesn't start breaking before that, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah, and that's the nice thing with weight-sensitive ice. The nice thing, but obviously, if it doesn't break by then and you're heavy, you're not going to love it. But what's nice about ice that is as weight-sensitive as this ice has seemed to be is it's very consistent that way, and you know that. So if it hasn't started to curl yet, you're quite aware that even if the sweeper thinks the weight is good, it's clearly not. It's going to slide further than that. So it's a really nice reference point, and it actually makes the line call and the weight call a lot easier, which is great.
Quick spin around the scores on the other sheets. We got fireworks everywhere but our own. Strauss and Casper with 3 in the first. I believe that was a steal on Podol and Perry, so they lead 3-0. TC and Dropkin continuing their run with a 3 on Mulaney and Sinnott, leading 3-0. And Anderson and Richardson, 4 of their own on Bookout Wiesa to lead 4-0. So all teams needing wins, jumping out on top early in these games, save for Nickel and Nickel in this matchup in our feature game.
I guess that's the bad part.
Well, and I would suggest to you, Ty, that nickel and nickel at the break. If it were me, I would be of the attitude of start the car. Like that could have easily been 2 or 3 or 4 if it went a little bit differently. So they were in a bit of trouble most of that end. They made a couple of good bail shots and a good guard on the last, and then Sarah Anderson was trying a very long race, difficult shot, and she didn't make it. But that looked like it was more trouble than a single point. So they have to be very happy right now with only giving up the single in that first end.
Nickel and nickel discussing angles here. We'll listen in a little bit. Sorry, Stopera and Anderson talking angles. Nickel and nickel sitting at least 1, appears to be 2. Stopera lining up for, I believe, a run back on that center guard, trying to open things up, lose as many of these yellows as he can if this is raised on the right angle. Playing the in-turn run for Stopera. Just to get up to move anything in the house. Looks like it's just going to peel it open. Chelsea, we saw the news that you and I both knew was forthcoming for the last few weeks with your doubles teammates, Colin Hodgson, retiring from men's competitive play after this Brier. Did mention that he intends to focus on his doubles career still with you, which is great to hear. Talk a little bit about Colin and what he's meant to you as a teammate and the experience of playing with him in doubles.
Yeah, Colin, that was an emotional release for me, and as you mentioned, I knew it was coming, but it's the right decision for him, and he's very happy with his decision, and I know it's the right decision. It's hard for me to watch him because he's still so good. Like, he's still so good. This too with stepping away from the game after winning an Olympic gold medal. It can be exhausting, and it takes a toll on you mentally and physically and everything else. So he's making the right decision for him, and I'm happy for him because he is very happy with that decision. But for sure, it's kind of a bittersweet one to me because I love watching him play and cheering for him, and he's still really good. But I'm excited to play doubles with him. Whether he wants to play with me or not, he is going to have to. So I'm going to drag him to some stuff, whether he's actually on board or not, it's happening. So I'll keep him in the game a bit that way. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him coaching and consulting and doing some stuff like that. He loves the game. He still loves the game. So I think you'll still see him around it, but yeah, definitely. I'm sure a lot of people were quite surprised by that, but it's the right call for him for sure.
And I can assure everybody who knows Colin or has been paying attention to this too, in the conversations that I had with him leading up to this decision and before the announcement, he's happy. He's really at peace with what he's doing. He's happy with what he does off the ice for the sport. He's happy to be an ambassador for the game. He's happy to be able to continue to work with his business with Dynasty and to continue playing doubles too. But there's, you can be sad that he's leaving. It can be a little bittersweet if you're a fan of Colin's, but he is completely content with what he's doing and really excited for his future as we see Andrew Stopera with a fantastic triple. The sit two, we had to just redirect off of that stone.
That was a really hard shot. He made that look easy. It was not easy. That was a very hard shot.
Yeah, that was an eighth of a rock redirect to lose all of those. That's about as good as you can do it. So Sarah and Andrew came ready to play in this game, and somebody can make one like that for you. I know for Sarah's sake, having that last one coming up, she feels a lot better about what she's going to have to throw after that shot by Andrew.
Yeah, it looks an awful lot better than it did a second ago, so she's got to be happy. The other thing about Colin, really quickly before we kind of move on from that, is what he's done for the game, I think is incredible as far as what he's done for the athletes. He's been a very vocal proponent of athlete mental health and athlete rights and all this kind of thing. And I think that's what's interesting to me now is he sort of wants to focus on still being involved in a way where he can affect positive change. And he's been that way for years. And it's a pretty powerful thing. And it's something that probably hasn't been done often enough. So he did it while he was playing, and he's going to continue to do it once he's retired from men's curling. But he's an advocate for the athlete, and he's always available to anybody that wants to talk about things. He's incredible that way, and so it's been fun for me to watch him do that. He's my best friend and my teammate and all those things. So selfishly, I wish he would continue to curl men so that I could cheer for him. But yeah, being his teammate has been a great experience, and getting to play together when we're as close as we are. But watching his approach to it, his desire to make it better for the athletes and for everybody, and equality and all these things, is something that I admire, that he does, that more of us probably should be doing. So he's an incredible person and a great athlete, and he'll still be around the sport. But yeah, we wish Colin all the best in his retirement. And before that, we wish him all the best at the Brier this week. He's still about to compete in the biggest event.
Yeah, well, he'll have this archived. He can listen to all the nice things that we say about him whenever he wants to now. So final stone for Sarah Anderson of this second end. Trying to hit and stick and maybe even roll in front of their own a little bit. That will roll to the wing. Sit 2. So sticking around, the most important thing, to avoid the hit and stick for 2 for Team Nickel. Looks like any respective double they might try would at least jam or not stick around. So probably just a draw for 1 for Kirstin Nickel.
By rolling where they did, it sets up that jam. If they'd stayed somewhere near the nose, then there would have potentially been a double for 2 if the Nickels wanted to take it on. But as it stands now, it will jam or roll out, to your point. So draw for 1.
Final stone of this second end. Kirstin Nickel playing the out turn. Just needs to get a piece of the 4-foot for this single point. Chelsea, we will have a guest in the booth for the third end. Katie Baker with USA Curling will be stepping in. So be having a little Q&A with her for a few minutes in the third. Really sweeping this hard to try to get to the 8-foot. This is turning over. Need to at least get a piece of the 8s to cut them to 1.
1 for sure.
Looks like it got just far enough to hold Anderson's Stopera at least to a point. So it is a steal of 1 after 2 ends of play. Sarah Anderson and Andrew Stopera leading Gabe and Kirstin Nickel 2-0.
Yeah.
Back for the start of the third end here at the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Andrew Stopera, Sarah Anderson leading Gabe and Kirstin Nickel 2-0 after that steal of 1 in the second end. Tyler George here in the booth, Chelsea Carey remote. And now sitting next to me, our guest in the booth here in Kalamazoo, Katie Baker, sporting director for USA Curling. Katie, thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We did have to drag Katie in a little bit. She's not a big fan of being on the microphone, but she'll handle herself just fine. Katie, talk a little bit about your role with USA Curling and where you see things going forward.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've observed over the past 6, 7, I guess we're on month 8, in chatting with a lot of the athletes and really actually doing a lot of listening, observing, seeing a lot of places that we can make some good structural changes or just put some structure in place, some organizational things in place that can provide some more transparency, better communication, and just structure in general. My background being 12 years at USA Triathlon, overseeing their national team program and working closely with those athletes. and dealing with a group of athletes that you had to have everything like very, very fine tuned and, organized. They needed structure, they wanted structure. And so being able to bring some of those skills, and then 11 years at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee, being able to apply some of those things to curling in our national team program.
Katie, you mentioned that you worked with triathlon for a while as well, and in our conversations between these games, you talked about the difference between working with curlers and working with triathletes, and a little bit different vibe than you're used to with triathletes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's pretty refreshing, actually. Not to give the triathletes a bad name, but obviously definitely a different group of athletes in terms of being very type A and.
Well, you're speaking to a curling audience, so it's okay to pump them up too.
All right. No, it's true. It has been really refreshing. I mean, truly since, the first month. And I feel like the athletes have been very open and welcoming, which has been, I was a little nervous not having any type of curling background and no knowledge of the sport other than, every 4 years watching the games. So this group has been beyond welcoming and willing to take the time to explain things, and the coaches have been fantastic. I mean, just the community as a whole has been amazing. And like I said, I've been listening a lot, and which, is obviously the way that I need to learn.
Gabe Nickel now playing this intern tap, trying to unlock these red stones and set up a multiple point end if possible, sitting at least second count, possibly third, but trying to move these red stones around a little bit. And this is over curling. It looks like it's going to wreck the guard and at least open the center up. Katie, something you mentioned I think is really important too for our athletes and our members. You talked about transparency and communication. I think in any sport that's so important to people that love it along with the athletes that compete in it. And it's something that's been mentioned repeatedly from both of those circles, from members and from athletes as well. I think there's been a drastic change in that over the last few months, and people are happy to see that. But is that something that you feel is an issue outside of the sport of curling, that it's just something where NGBs and member associations are always struggling to try to better communicate with their members and with their athletes?
Yeah, and I definitely think that across any sport organization or national governing body, like, communications can be challenging, which is funny because resources don't have to be put against that. Like, it should be an easy thing to do. But I think that, yes, a lot of organizations struggle with that. The transparency piece, maybe not quite as much. It's something that, quite honestly, just needs to happen. I mean, with everything that's gone on the past few years in sport and the mandates that are coming down from Congress, with, safe sport, hate to bring up that word, but, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee has been charged with needing to have more oversight over NGBs to better understand the business and ensuring that they're running their businesses. And a part of that is with transparency and really having people understand how the business is being ran, but also how things are happening at the high performance level.
Gabe Nickel once again now trying to move some red granite around. Things starting to pile up in the 4-foot for Anderson and Stopera. That was clear one stone, move another out of the 4-foot, so a little bit cleaner than it was, but that yellow stone likely leaving the premises shortly with Andrew Stopera's final stone of this end. Talking about where the best leave is for this shot. Thinking just nose and make sure the yellow goes out. Katie, after watching so much curling now since you've joined the organization, you feel like you're getting to be a little more knowledgeable with the shots and the angles and the terminology.
A little bit. I'm going to be honest. I'm not.
Hence the hesitancy to hop in.
I am definitely, I've got so much to learn. And that's one thing I would say, like, being on the outside looking in, there's so much more to this sport that I don't think the average person has any idea. And that has definitely been probably the biggest surprise to me is how much there is to this sport. I think that people, again, the non-curlers do not understand that, and yeah, there is a lot to learn, and I have a far way to go in terms of the sport specific, but I felt like January I was starting to pick things up. After
That's how we usually feel as athletes. We get to January, then we're starting to pick things up on the ice.
Fair, definitely. Yeah, after a trip up to Evelyn, I was ready.
If you can survive Evelyn, that's where you're going to learn a lot about curling and about curlers too.
Exactly.
That's a great place to go to get that sense. There's such a wide range of experiences when it comes to our sport too, and the places that you go, the Grand Slam events as opposed to a World Tour event in a small town in northern Minnesota, which may be the coldest place on the planet too. But it is a wonderful
nearly
group
as
of people.
bad as they made it out to be.
No, well, that's the idea. We have to pump it up like
Sure,
it's
of course.
the worst place on earth with regard to the cold and the snow. So Gabe Nickel playing this out-turn pass now on these two stones. We saw a bit of an error from Andrew Stopera hanging out wide on a fairly straightforward short run in the house. Now trying to play the soft weight bump around the corner guard. He can move both of these stones and possibly sit two would be great. Needs to curl up a little more for that. Just rolls to the center. 2 stones left in this end. Katie, what's the next stop for you with USA Curling? Where will you be off to next?
I probably will head up to Junior Nationals in Boston at the beginning of April.
You got it.
And that probably will be it for me for this season. We're still chatting through that, but we definitely need to show up and support our juniors. So plan is to hopefully be up there for that.
Sarah Anderson now with a double attempt on her final stone. Could make Nickel and Nickel look at 4 and avoid giving up a chance for a multiple point end. Stopera hammering this out of her hand, trying to hold the line. Now needing it to curl a little bit. And that's perfectly made by Sarah. Well done. They now sit 4. Nickel and Nickel, 1 stone left to throw, and I'm not sure they can nose this stone and sit shot. So it may end up having to be a draw to the 4-foot against these 4.
I was over top. I was like, it feels like it's we're not.
Nickel now calling for that. I believe they will play the draw with this final shot of the end. Taking another look now, too. That roll was perfect, really, from Sarah Anderson in making that double, leaving the rock exactly where it is. Now talking about rolling a couple inches to get shot rock. This is really a shooter's preference type of shot. Katie, there isn't always a right or wrong one as much as which one do you think you're going to make. And that's what the situation is right now in a key spot with 4 stones in the house. The draw and the hit, both good shots. Kirstin Nickel preferring the hit, so the final stone of this third end, needing to hit and stick. Roll a few inches to get shot. Just playing soft weight, looks very close. They have overcurled a little, and I think it's a steal of 1. But Katie, thanks so much for joining. We'll let you get back to your work. I always see you plugging away on the laptop. Busy all the time, but we appreciate the time and everything you're doing for USA Curling. It's great to get to know you this week.
Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate it.
3-0, Anderson and Stopera leading after 3 ends of play. We move on to the 4th.
Yeah. No, I'd like it to be red. Yeah. I'm going to measure it. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. We're going to need your services right away.
Apparently we are measuring these stones. Didn't think
Measuring for 1.
they were going to. They called it immediately that it was a steal and turned the mics off for a second. But Chelsea, if you are there now, what's your call on this measurement? I'm sticking with red, and I'm I believe 5-0 this week on measurement calls.
Well, it's really close. My first thought was yellow, but it's very close for sure.
Oh boy, I don't want to have the first one be wrong when I'm up against you. This is dangerous territory for
when
me.
When you picked red, I had to go against you.
No, I actually put the headset down when they said one red immediately.
Well, and he tapped it right away. Yeah, that looks like red from that.
It is red. 6-0 this week.
6-0. Oh, perfect.
Unbelievable run. I don't think I've ever had a run like this when I was standing directly over the stones on the ice. So it is, in fact, a 3-0 score after 3 ends of play. Anderson Stopera leading nickel and nickel.
Yeah, that was a save.
But also, like, if I miss my first one, then you, like, make a run back triple, that's a save. Or you had one last.
Twin Cities Orthopedics is ready to go with more doctors, specialty services, and convenient urgent care locations. Ready, set, TCO.
Start of the 4th end of play here at the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Tyler George with 2-time Scotties champion Chelsea Carey. 3-0 lead. Anderson Stopera over nickel and nickel. And Chelsea, I got to tell you, we have the Canadian invasion going on right now. One of our local sponsors here, Tim Hortons. Wake up to freshness with Tim's 2 for $6 breakfast sandwiches featuring fresh cracked eggs. Pair with the new vanilla-flavored cream cold brew with chocolate cold foam or a vanilla-flavored latte with chocolate syrup. Thank you to our local sponsor, Tim Hortons, located at 5709 West Nidge Avenue near I-94 in Portage. Did you know that Tim's is branching out down here, Chelsea? Feels like home from all these tournaments playing on the road.
Yeah, they were actually bought by Wendy's a number of years ago. So they tried it. It turns out that I actually did a case study on it when I was in business school about why it failed in the U.S. originally, which it did. And it's because Canadians drink their coffee double, which is 2 cream and 2 sugar. And Americans drink their coffee black, and Tim Hortons coffee doesn't taste as good black as they wanted it to. So it was like they use 18% cream, and like I guess the double was the thing, is what we were told when I was in school. But yeah, it's actually, I mean, it's a Canadian brand, but it's owned now by an American company.
Sure. And I can tell you that I had a Tim Hortons coffee this morning at an American curling event, and it felt a little strange, but it also felt a little like home because
you felt like you were back on tour.
Yeah, it's like curling again. That squeaks by. What a draw! What a call!
I can't believe that got by. That went through the edge of that rock.
Went through the side of the stone.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, we joked earlier about we know that the full-scale invasion is on when they start opening up the keg down here, and then we got to start stockpiling canned goods. And I'll tell you what, if you guys make our liquor prices go up and the free pour goes away, then I'm going to be really angry with you.
Well, yeah, that's the downside for sure of the invasion.
And being so close to the border too, we're some of the first casualties. So
yes,
a little scary in Duluth.
As we're about to warn all the House of Hearts skips about before we get them down there.
Yeah, I suppose we should probably let them know for those that haven't been. But outturn attempt here for Gabe Nickel, trying to get close to this guard and play the hit on that red stone on the top of the eights. Looks like it may wreck the guard again. Gabe's just been a little on the tight side with a few of those shots. We saw him flare a few outturns in the draw we had earlier today. Now we do go across the sheets for updates on these scores. Strauss and Casper leading 4-2 on Podol and Perry, trying to lock up their playoff spots. Podol and Perry with a 2 in the third to cut that deficit to 4-2. TC and Dropkin leading 4-1 over Mulaney and Sinnott, looking to stay undefeated. Over there on sheet E, 5-1 now. Taylor Anderson and Ben Richardson over Bookout and Wiesa, so favorites doing their thing right now. And if these scores do hold, Chelsea, we will have no tiebreakers. Once again, you hear that sigh of relief and probably the clinking of a couple of bottles from the ice staff if there are no 9 a.m. tiebreakers. The playoffs would start at 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
A little more. Weight's a little heavy. Just for lines.
Stopera playing the out-turn tap. The stone on the top of the 8 foot. Already sitting 1. Nickel and nickel sitting 2nd and 4th. Will sit right on top of the lid. Well played. Chelsea, believe there's a triple there if they just get close to that yellow stone?
Yeah, it's really close. It's hard to tell from the overhead if they can hit it thin enough to get the back two. I think it's maybe there. You have to paper that yellow with the top red. But I don't really know what else you do. I think you may as well try it at this point. You got to, even if it jams or something, like you need to open some stuff up here. So I think you got to try it. And it looks to me from the overhead like it's just possible, maybe.
I agree. I think it may be there. And as a impartial broadcaster that just wants entertainment for the fans, I would like to see Gabe make this shot just to see his reaction. So we're looking for a triple here from Gabe. And again, just for the entertainment portion of this, playing the out-turn possible triple. These 3 red stones would sit 3 if it's made. Gabe not overthrowing it, making sure the shooter stays around. So they may not all leave the house if they make the shot, but moving all the stones would be very important. This one taking a curl now too, taking a hard turn towards the center.
Is that maybe
make
what they
the
were
double and roll under?
I'm wondering if that's what they were playing because he threw it so quiet. Like, just make the double.
Yeah. If that was
I think if you were playing,
that was really well executed.
Well, I think if you're playing the triple, you got to throw it harder than that. So I think they were maybe thinking just make the double and sit 3-1. You know, it becomes a lonely red rock in there pretty quick.
Yeah, rolled to a great spot under that corner too. Even though Anderson Stopera is sitting 1, that rock's getting lonely. We'll listen to Andrew for a second here. Maybe already missed the conversation. That's on me. But they said they're playing with fire a little bit with where they elect to throw this. And Chelsea, what do you like for a spot for this draw? Because they are drawing.
I mean, I don't think you necessarily need to be second shot, but I think if I got to walk it down there and place it, I would put it basically splitting center line, just enough of the 4 foot to be second shot, and a piece buried behind that stagger. The only bad news for the nickels there is that rolled just a tiny bit too far for there to be any drag on a run back or something to try to get it to come back towards this rock that Andrew Stopera is about to throw. So I think in a perfect world, you're full 4, right where Sarah's broom is, basically full 4, even 3/4, 4 foot. As long as you're, half buried maybe, then I don't know that there's much that Team Nickel can do with this frozen yellow situation over here.
It's a really well-placed stone there by Stopera. And Chelsea, as we mentioned, that break started just before that Columbia logo. Always good to give the sponsors a pop again, too. But the line on the stone, we figured was going to be pretty close, but the speed, you can tell, again, it just started curling right before it got to that blue lettering of the Columbia logo.
Yeah, so it's got to be close. Like you said, it's been that way all week, and good sweep there by Andrew Stopera, too. Both these teams, the middle 3 thrower is sweeping all their own rocks. For the Nickels, I think they're both sweeping all their own rocks, which, that's the interesting thing about mixed doubles is you can do that a number of different ways, and you'll see different teams do it different ways, where one person sweeps or the other one does sweep the other person's rock, or you get up and sweep your own rock, or someone sweeps everything, or someone, there's lots of different kind of ways to attack it. And it depends a little bit on the skill set of the players and a little bit on preferences and all that kind of stuff. But it's interesting to watch. But Andrew Stopera, for someone who I think skipped a good chunk of his life, is a pretty good sweeper. Right. So he gets up and catches up to that rock pretty quick and puts a pretty good sweep on that one to put it in basically a perfect spot. So now up to Gabe Nickel here to try to make it. Looks like he's trying to maybe tap it and stay in front of that other red rock that's back button.
The line looks real close here. Needs to get up a little bit to push that rock out of the fours. Just touches, but does move the other red back to the back 12 foot. And Chelsea, you talked about the choice of sweeping your own stone, having a sweeper for shots. I know it depends on which shot you're playing, so we won't go into too many details, but how often do you feel like with you and Colin that you're sweeping your own stone or having your teammates sweep for you?
Well, I'm not allowed to sweep any rocks when Colin is playing, so he sweeps all of them.
That's kind of where I threw mine, though, when I threw
I could get into that. I mean, maybe I need a doubles teammate that does that for me.
I'm not mad about it. Like, let's be clear. But yeah, no, he sweeps. I mean, that's his skill set, right? Like, that's what he does. And what we found is when we first started playing doubles together, when it first became a medal sport at the Olympics, I was sweeping his at least early, and then he would come and catch up to it. But like, you think, okay, well, getting a broom on it early is going to be helpful. But what we found is that we had no idea what the ice was doing. We were just going like, oh, I thought I threw that good. I don't know what happened. So my skill set is reading the ice, and his is sweeping the rocks. So we essentially have just reverted to what our skill sets are, and we just kind of roll with that. But it's a lot for him though. Like, it's really hard on the person that's sweeping everything if that's what you do physically. So it's challenging for sure. But yeah, no, I don't. When I played with other mixed doubles teammates, I have swept a bit. I played with John Morris. I played with Braden Muskogee. I played with when I played with Aaron Sluchinski, who's Colin's cousin, actually, he swept everything too. But I have swept with some teammates. But most of the time, when I'm playing with Colin, he sweeps all the rocks, and I sweep none of them.
And tell why you say such nice things about him now too.
I know, that's what I always say.
New things or not, he's sweeping all your stones. So you better come up with nice things so he sticks around. I got it now. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I do. I give him a lot of credit, and he's like, "Oh, you're too nice to me." I'm like, "Dude, you sweep all the rocks. Like, it's way harder for you than it is for me."
So again, Chelsea, you mentioned where that roll ended up for the Nichols, that they wouldn't be able to use that for a run back, and that's now come to fruition. There isn't really an angle for these things, although Gabe seems to be looking at playing that. I'm not sure I see what they're trying to do with this run with where the rocks are angled to. I don't think that's going to drag to that stone in the top of the forefoot on the right side from the overhead. So it would appear that the draw for one is probably the right shot, but they are attempting this run.
I agree with you. I think if the guard wasn't there, there's maybe a chance if you hit that yellow rock on the center line side, depending on what the rocks are like, that it might drag enough to touch that red. But I don't think with the guard it's ever going to. I think it goes straight through the hole.
At least one.
I guess we'll never know.
A steal of two now. Going to the fourth end break. Brought to you by Warm Room Hero, the intuitive curling club software that takes the stress out of schedules, registrations, and more. Warm Room Hero, a platform built for curlers by curlers. Check out Warm Room Hero at curling.club today. They are looking at possibly measuring this again. And it will be a measure. So now we have to make another pick, and I'm sticking with red. Looks to be, I think it's red by a pretty decent margin here, but
yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think it's I was sort of with you last time, but I thought I needed to go against you. I can't go yellow on this one. I think that's red all day.
Yeah, if I lose this one and ruin my perfect record for the week on the one that I think I'm just about the most confident in, then I'm going to be very surprised and very upset.
It's like your own version of the commentator's curse. You curse
essentially,
yourself.
Yeah. Chelsea, I will tell you before we get to the break, too, that we'll take a few minutes at the break and come back in about a minute before we get to the fifth end, and you'll hear my voice come on, and we'll give a little recap for the first four. These are the things that we go over during the game for our production meeting here,
Well, I
folks.
think
You
that
get to
the
hear it
whole
live
house,
on the
though, is
air.
supposedly translated out. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Talking about the circles being a little skewed.
Yeah, it's a pin. No, I know it's.
Measuring for a second point for red for Anderson and Stopera. Already won.
Oh, it's red. Red? Yeah.
It is red. 7-0 for the week. The streak rolls on. So our score, after 4 ends of play, Anderson Stopera leading nickel and nickel 5-0.
Wow. Good call, Sarah.
Makes sense.
Cool. Yeah. Scary. A little scary.
Your draw.
Let's say you're in high school and there's a sport you like, but sometimes you think, you know, it might be cool to try a new sport.
End up with a corner guard on the other side of the sheet.
Twin Cities Orthopedics is ready to go with more doctors, specialty services, and convenient urgent care locations. Ready, set, TCO.
Getting ready to come back for the second half of this game. 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Taking a look at the standings from Pool 1. Persinger applies the top seed with that 7-0 record. They will have a bye into the semifinals. Number 2 seed, Hamilton and Hamilton, by virtue of their win over Geving and Schuster, both at 5-2. Geving Schuster, the 3 seed. Moores Wheeler at 4-3, just misses out on a playoff berth. Rhymes Smith 3-4, Burr 2-5, Fountain Cott 2-5, and Rohrbacher Skebby 0-7. Taking a look at the scores around the other sheets as well. Sheet B, Strauss and Casper looking to lock up their playoff spot. They lead 5-2 over Podol and Perry. TC and Dropkin leading 4-2 with Hammer. Moving on to the fifth end in that game over Mulaney and Sinnott. Our feature game again. Anderson Stopera with 3 steals in this game so far, leading 5-0 over Gabe and Kirstin Nickel. And over on sheet E, Taylor Anderson, Ben Richardson leading 6-1 over Bookout and Wiesa, now in the fifth end over there as well. Chelsea, kind of a back and forth game where a few half misses for Team Nickel really changed the trajectory of those ends around, and that really is the name of the game with mixed doubles, that you see one little half miss and an end that looked like it was going one direction completely turns on its head.
Yeah, doubles is crazy like that. The momentum shifts are wild, and it's really fun to watch as a spectator. It's not really fun to play in that sense because it's very stressful. But yeah, definitely not as the score doesn't show the kind of game that we've had here. It's been closer than that. It's just kind of that one, like you said, little half shot. You know, you're off by an inch here or there, and that's what's really cost the Nickels so far. But the power play is super interesting, and the thing about doubles too is 5-0 in regular curling. You're probably going, okay, thank you very much, handshakes almost at this point. Like, you play, but you're going to lose. It's not that way in doubles. So you see a lot of 3s and 4s and steals of multiples, and it's just the nature of the beast with the rocks pre-placed and the no hits before the fifth rock and all that stuff. So not over yet, but definitely need to see a crooked number here for Team Nickel, I would suggest.
Yeah, we've mentioned that exact thing so many times throughout this competition too, that it's just such a goofy game where the scoreboard in a lot of cases is not indicative of at all of the competitive level of the game, and this would be a prime example of that, where there's been a lot of back and forth, a lot of made shots both ways, but the wrong mistake at the wrong time can completely turn these ends on their head, and that is what we've seen. Need to throw in one more ad that I really don't want to have to do, but we really don't have much choice.
It's good.
Kalamazoo's own Marcus Gleaton. He's down in Hawaii right now. Helped out a lot to get this tournament set up and everything he did for the first few days while we've been out here. We're very jealous that he's down there, and we have to give his company credit now. Mimic Insurance. The Gleaton Agency has been serving the educational community in Southwest Michigan since 2006. Call them for all your home and automobile insurance needs. And everyone, call them right now. Call them while they're in Hawaii. Bother Marcus while he's on his vacation, while he's not up here in the snow, and he's on the beaches in Hawaii. We do tease Marcus. We love him. He's done so much for all these events here, but we have to be very jealous of where he's at right now while we're in this 6 to 10 inches of snow here in his hometown, and he's in Hawaii. So hope you're watching out there, Marcus. Thanks for everything you've done. All right, I'm done being bitter about it now.
Not exactly the plan there, I don't think, for Gabe Nickel. A little bit heavier than he probably would have liked that to be. Not a bad result. Going to be tough for Team Anderson Stopera to get rid of 2 of those rocks right now. They don't need
Chelsea,
to
they were
right
looking
now.
at the run for a second there, too. Would you like the hitting the rock they can see, or playing that run back against, possibly leaving all those stones in, but maybe opening it up and having a triple opportunity?
I like the run. I think if it were Colin and I, that's what we would be playing, because even if you miss it, you peel it and then you open it up, and you're okay to give up 2 here if you're Anderson Stopera. So I think that the guard is your biggest enemy right now versus those rocks in the house.
That guard does stay there on the run, even though it clears one stone.
A little wide.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that picks that rock out.
Shoot.
Looking at our possible playoff matchups as we're projecting going forward with Strauss and Casper, Anderson and Stopera both leading. They would lock up the last 2 playoff berths with a victory. By virtue of Strauss and Casper's victory over Anderson and Stopera, they would be the number 2 seed for the playoffs out of this bracket. Anderson Stopera would be the 3 seed. Always nice when it's easy to line up like that too, Chelsea. 3 teams in, 2 of them tied, but 1 beat the other one, so we know where they're at. No math, no LSD, no nothing else, no 3-man sack race. We have it all set.
So long as there isn't a
I feel like
comeback
that's
here
really
by
thin.
the Nichols, and then it might screw up all your math.
Yeah,
Turn
for
again.
now, as we're projecting where it's at, we're not playing favorites with anybody, but projecting these games, that is how things would play out. And as we say that, fifth end, Podol and Perry put up 2 on Strauss and Casper. So deficit cut to 1, now 5-4. Strauss and Casper leading Podol and Perry. These teams at 3 and 3, trying to get a victory, only need one of those 2 teams to lose to force a tiebreaker situation. And with Anderson and Richardson leading 6-1, one of those 3 and 3 teams, if they do win, and one of these 2 teams at 4 and 2 losses, there will be a tiebreaker tomorrow morning. So things getting interesting. See Stopera really firing that one and throwing $1 in the swear jar for the effort as well.
You need to
Chelsea
start-
can't hear the player mics, but
I can't hear
I
the
can
mics,
guarantee
but-
you he got one of the good ones in there.
I think you guys need to start doing what John Cullen does on Curling Live in Canada, where he charges them $10 a swear, and then he donates it all to the Sandra Schmirler Foundation.
That's pretty good. We could do that for Project Joy for
That's
for
what
House
I
of
mean.
Hearts,
Yeah,
actually.
like pick Project Joy, and then every time they swear, you just have to go collect some money from them.
It's a very good idea. I think we may have to institute that going forward. I'd hate to do it retroactively because that would mean I'd have to go back and watch all the games and find all the swearing when we could hear the players.
That's fair, but you could start it now. Not the result they would have been looking for there. That was a pretty big opportunity. I'm not actually totally clear on what the call was there for Gabe Nickel. I think I would have just been throwing a draw around everything if I were them, but taps that red rock, but not a terrible result, but it gives a potential out here for Sarah Anderson.
A very big shot here for Sarah. And
like
Chelsea,
9-5.
in mixed doubles, this is one of those shots that you don't play the path very often, so it's a little bit of a guess. And you really try to figure it out in practice because it may be a spot that you're playing, not just for the corner guard tick in these power play ends, but just in case that rock opens up, having to play a normal hit on this line.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a guess for sure. The good news for them here is that even if they just knows it, they're only giving up 2, which isn't a disaster. But it is always a bit of a guess, and you always have that conversation. The nice thing is that you do have that, and I hate to be, this isn't like an anti-feminism thing, but like you do have that male sweeper who's typically pretty strong and can do some damage for you. So that helps with when you're the person sitting in the hack, for me anyway. It definitely helps to give you that little bit of extra confidence. Like Colin will say, don't be wide. Just let me sweep it. And that's a reassuring thought to have in your head when you're in the hack. It's just that little bit of extra margin for error, which is always helpful. So not the result that they would have been looking for in a perfect world, but a pretty good one. You're not that sad to give up 2 when you're up 5, but also not a terrible result for the Nichols right now. You're hanging a multiple point on the board, assuming she makes this draw, and that's kind of what you were looking for coming into this end. So neither team, I would suggest, terribly upset with this outcome.
Chelsea mentioned Collins saying, don't be wide, let me sweep it. I would probably say don't be narrow because then I have to sweep it. So opposite ends of the spectrum there.
If you were sweeping my rock, then I would make sure I was wide, if anything. But
That's totally fair. Draw to the 4-foot for that second point. Didn't need to be swept. I would have handled that one the same way. And the score is 5-2. Anderson and Stopera with that 2-point end from Nickel and Nickel, trying to climb back in this battle and stay in playoff contention.
2/3, 3/4. Oh, that much.
The everyday person may not aspire to be a professional athlete or an Olympic athlete. You may just want to be the best person you can be. You just may want to sleep better. You may want to feel better. Thorne has many products that can support all of those things. So it's not just about performing or running faster or jumping higher. It's those little things that go into having a higher quality of life.
With the start of the sixth end of our feature matchup, the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships, Sarah Anderson, Andrew Stopera leading Gabe Nickel, Kirstin Nickel 5-2. Stopera and Anderson will be using their power play here in the sixth. And at the start of the sixth end, thanks to our friends at Floor Curl, USA Curling member clubs are entitled to a 20% discount on any Floor Curl inflatable rink set. These rinks only take a minute to inflate or deflate and are the perfect way to promote your club at summer festivals, events, or anywhere you have a flat surface. No ice required. Visit usacurling.floorcurl.com. Chelsea Floor Curl, of course, associated with our good friends at Rock Solid Productions, Ryan and Steph LeDrew and Chad McMullen. We love that they're involved with USA Curling and sponsoring the event.
Yeah, a great group of humans and a really cool program and technology that they have going on. It's brought curling to a lot more people and a lot more places than it would have otherwise been able to go, just for the necessity of having the ice and all the things. So definitely a very, very cool thing. And we've seen it in some pretty interesting places on rooftops in New York and Chicago and things like that, you know, these people wouldn't be exposed to curling otherwise. So very cool thing that Chad McMullen has come up with. And of course, our good friends, the LeDrews, now kind of running the ship, which is a little bit terrifying, but you know, definitely a neat initiative and a great company.
Again, that power play in play. Center guard being thrown, now a second center
Here we go for it.
from the Nickels. For those watching the broadcast here,
2/3.
we now have the chat feed up on the screen if anybody wants to ask Chelsea any questions for the final three ends of this matchup.
Oh,
Please
pressure's
feel
on.
free to chime in.
You like this ice?
Getting some compliments in there already, Chelsea.
Hey, I'll take that.
About your commentary chops. I'm not going to read exactly what it says. Not that it's anything bad, but comparing to certain other commentators.
Yeah, we don't need
Positive
to,
on your side.
I mean, I'll take it. We don't need to draw any comparisons. I'm happy for complimentary things. That's good.
Whiskers by the double peel and just catches a tiny piece of that redstone underneath the corner guard. So
it's hard to touch that and move it as little as they did.
Yeah, that's near impossible with that type of weight. So important shot now for Gabe Nickel, excuse me. Probably thinking of bourbon on that one.
You're always thinking of bourbon, Ty.
You know, I really don't drink bourbon anymore either. I got to tell you.
Bourbon, I would say
myself,
rum.
But
I would say rum before bourbon if there was something you were always thinking about.
That's probably the fourth draw of the game getting to my brain, and the fact that once this game is over after 4 games, then a beverage may be in order too. So I think that was just my reflex there. Apologies to Gabe.
There's a pretty good chance you earned it. It was suggested to me in several messages actually, that we should call Team Nickel Team Dime, which I quite enjoy. Too, yeah.
Almost another free plug for a non-sponsor with George Dickel Bourbon. Had a few of those between the Dr. Pepper Zero Sugars and that and everything else we bring into the booth here usually ends up getting a cheap pop. But there is no bourbon in the booth, I can assure you. Water and Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar only. Andrew Stopera trying to double peel these two center guards. As close as they are, pretty straightforward shot for Andrew, and they both exit, so a little bit of danger now for Team Nickel. Tell us, what are you seeing here with these rock locations? Not a whole lot to throw to. Maybe tap these around a little bit, create a pocket, at least try to sit second.
I think that's all you can do. There's nothing good right now. I mean, I guess in theory you could try to wrap around that top red rock and be shot rock and maybe half buried, but that seems very all or nothing to me right now. So I like making a play here. Just try to move them around a bit, maybe give yourself a pocket, try to sit at least second shot and make Team Anderson Stopera deal with it, and then hopefully you have something on your last one.
Looks like they're changing up to the run back now.
This is a great shot if you make it, but if you don't make it, you're giving up a pile.
Pretty good shove there from Gabe. Not hearing a whole lot. Look at this shot. Wow.
What a great shot.
Incredible shot by Gabe Nickel. I guess I just had to motivate him by getting his name wrong, and all of a sudden fires that thing down and run back double.
That he made that look really easy. That was a really hard shot to get that perfect,
incredibly
especially
hard
with
shot.
And no sweeping, like just all the way down on its own. That's unreal. That's an absolute pistol by Gabe Nickel.
Out of the day, maybe from Nickel, and just trying to hang around in this matchup now. Taking the multiple point end, hopefully out of play for them. Chelsea, we do have one question from Emily Silverling asking the story behind how you and Colin decided to start playing together for mixed doubles. I'm sure that starts with being good friends, but you still have to decide that it's a good matchup for competitive purposes as well.
Yeah, do you know what's funny? That you'd think it would have occurred to Colin and I, being as good of friends as we were, but the announcement that it was going to be a medal sport came what felt like out of nowhere to us in Canada anyway. I'm not sure about the rest of the world, but we were a little bit taken aback by it. So we hadn't really talked about it at all. And we were in Hollywood. You were there, Ty, as well, at the Blockbuster Spiel. And it was actually Jamie Sinclair who looked at Colin and I and said, like, you guys should play doubles together. Yeah. And we sort of looked at each other and went, yeah, you're right, we should. And then we did. So I have to give my teammate Jamie credit for that one.
Yeah, and once you got rid of the dead weight from that squad, because it was you and Colin and myself and one other person that raised money to play with the three of us, then you figured out, once Ty's gone, maybe we could do something with this team.
I don't know if it quite went that way.
After that beautiful run back by Gabe, now the flashed hit. Just papering that stone and a draw for two. Probably a hair. So the run back goes for naught. Or then to the wing, I mean. And now the draw for Sarah Anderson for the second point. Try to take a 5-point lead here after 6 ends. Just needs the paint. Chelsea, we always say easiest way to score one, free draw for two.
Yeah, that's very true. You have to like her chances of hitting the paint, but you never know. Stranger things have happened.
Yep, turning over a little bit earlier than we've seen, but Andrew just valeting this one right down to the button.
Feel good.
2 it is. So again, the score after 6 ends of play in this feature matchup, Anderson and Stopera leading Nickel and Nickel 7-2.
Just because you're not a professional athlete doesn't mean that you should accept less. The beauty about what Thorne does is our product quality is the same whether they're in the athletic line or whether they're just for the everyday person. Thorne has kept true to never compromising on quality, never compromising on efficacy, never compromising on safety for not only athletes but for everyone who would use their products.
Beginning of the 7th end of our feature matchup, the 2023 USA Curling Mixed Doubles National Championships. Tyler George with Chelsea Carey. 7-2 score. Sarah Anderson, Andrew Stopera leading Gabe and Kirstin Nickel. And with the start of the 7th end, one last time, we'll talk to you about Warm Room Hero. More than just software, it's run by curlers dedicated to building long-term relationships with your club. Warm Room Hero provides continuous support to ensure your website exceeds your members' expectations. Check out Warm Room Hero today at curling.club for special event pricing. Thank you again to Anthony Darko, Christina Darko, down in Chicago, Windy City Curling Club, for sponsoring the event. Appreciate everything you do for the sport and for our national championships. Please look up their company, look up their software, more than just software, once again, for all your curling club needs. In-turn draw here from Kirstin Nickel. Trying to bump these rocks around a little bit. And Chelsea, now we're at the point in the game with this 5-point deficit. Power play's already been used. That early in the game, you're looking to play freezes and play position and set up for points later in the end. Now is when you got to bump rocks around a little bit more around the center guard and unlock things so you can try to score a 3 or a 4, because 2 really probably isn't good enough at this point.
Yeah, no, you're right for sure. And it's one of those things where what you have to take advantage of is the fact that no one can hit any rocks for the first few here. So if you tap that, even if you roll away, if you tap it and sit 2, it's a pretty good shot because they still can't hit any of your yellows. So you have to try to take advantage of that as much as you can. You need some misses here. If you're team nickel, you need some misses from Anderson Stopera, which we haven't seen a lot of so far. And you need to make 5 perfect shots and hope that you get a chance for more than 2, to your point. I mean, 2's the minimum, I guess, that would kind of keep the game going. But you need to be trying for 3 or 4.
See this extremely important update on sheet B with Delaney Strauss and Danny Casper taking 3 in the 6th end to go up 8-4 on Podol and Perry. Strauss and Casper would lock up the number 2 seed from this pool for the playoffs with a victory. Over on sheet C, TC and Dropkin leading 5-3 over Mulaney Sinnott, looking to complete that undefeated run. And a final over on sheet E after 4 with the power play for Taylor Anderson and Ben Richardson. 10-2 is the final there. So they've done their job to try to keep themselves alive for playoff contention with that 4th win, but they do need either Strauss and Casper or Anderson and Stopera to lose to stay alive. The waiting game now, Chelsea. Nobody wants to play that one. And with these scoreboards the way they're at, they're going to need things to turn pretty significantly in one of these 2 games.
Yeah, a number of teams cheering pretty hard here for Team Dime, if we want to call them that. Team Nickel. It's they have to get a pretty significant turn here. But we've seen stranger things happen in men's and women's curling, never mind in mixed doubles. So it's not over yet, but it's not looking great at this moment. But yeah, there will be a few teams sitting back there cheering for a big comeback here.
Chelsea, question on strategy too for the later stages of these games, especially when Team Dime here has the hammer. With that center guard being up, is there any time that you've seen or you would play a split on that center guard to set up 2 corners and maybe go for a traditional curling 3 or 4 by going to the corners as opposed to the center?
Yeah, I don't mind it in the sense that when you see the freeze played, then you can play it almost risk-free in the same way that you see in 4-person curling, where you can play sort of a back 8-foot weight kind of a shot. And if you get to the 2 frozen rocks and you unlock it, it's good. And if you chisel the guard into 2 corner guards, you're pretty happy with that too. So for sure, I've seen it done and I've done it. We've done it, Colin and I have ourselves, where we've said like, this is good and that's good. So it's a pretty low risk way to give yourself a chance to maybe open the middle up a little bit and potentially set up a couple corner guards and hopefully use them later in the end.
Guard being played there by Andrew Stopera. Another thing that you see a lot more in mixed doubles than men's or women's, but seeing it more now with 5-rock rule, Chelsea, than we did before, with leads of 3, 4, 5 points. Teams throwing guards when they have good setups on the center line because you're not able to take stones out in both versions of play.
Yeah, with the no-tick rule, you're seeing it in men's and women's a lot because essentially your only option is to just clog the middle as much as you can because in theory the other team is trying to draw play to the wings and set up their 2 or 3 or whatever they need. So your only option is to throw a bunch of rocks in the middle and say, okay, make a triple before you can use your corner guards. And for sure, it's the case in doubles, especially with less rocks being played in the end, where every instinct in your body will tell you you want to peel something or hit something or run something, but there aren't that many rocks left, and whatever you can hit and peel is not really going to help you that much. So you end up throwing guards, and it's terrifying to do, but it's the right call a lot of the time. So yeah, for sure in both disciplines, we've seen it in doubles for the entirety of its existence in as far as I know, but it's new in men's and women's because of the no-tick rule that's come into play now.
Really nice shot there by Gabe Nickel. Unfortunately, still leaves a piece open. Sarah and Andrew discussing now.
Isn't it really good for us?
Can he make this double? I think he might be able to.
Andrew thinks that there's enough of that rock that they can hit to play the double.
If I'm anywhere, like,
So you're saying this then? Is that what you're
even if I'm just frozen here, I don't know how they get a ton. Like, what do they do if we're here?
Right.
Even if I'm here, it's really good.
Right, I'm seeing they have this.
Well, but if I'm there, it's no longer good. Or if
I'm just thinking like eliminating rocks.
no, I know, it's just I have probably what I need to hit.
Right.
So
Andrew's saying that he has what he needs to hit to make the double. Question is, do they want to play that if they think they're losing their back red one?
Make their lives tougher.
Okay.
Now talking about instead just lobbing one in, saying it'll make their lives tougher. So Chelsea, it does appear that they're going to go with the draw instead and play it a little safer. And as long as that red stone is behind that rock, that yellow is still locked into place, and it kind of makes it more difficult to score multiple points because there's no scoring space.
Yeah, I agree. I like this call. It's for sure the safer option, and I think at this point, you're pretty happy to give up 1, and you're not even that sad to give up 2. So playing the double, I think it's hard to hurt yourself with the double, but you don't need to play it. It just, if you put this anywhere, even if this is a guard, it's still a pretty good shot for Team Anderson Stopera. It's hard to do something bad here with the draw, where with the hitch you might be able to do something bad.
Line looks really nice here from Stopera. I'd like to cross this a little bit and just chip and roll in. That's a pretty good shot. Chelsea, you said your parents were watching. Like to say hi to Dan and Mary while we have the mics and the power to do so. And while we say that, I have a text from my father that came in as well, asking a question of his own. With the mixed doubles rule of losing hammer with a blanked end, you think that's something that should be instituted for men's and women's as well?
So I do personally think that should be what happened, but it was an interesting debate the other day on Facebook, of all places. that suggestion was posted, and I said that I supported it. But it was a good point made by actually Braden Muskowey, who said, "But then
Braden made a good point. I got to hear this. Though. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, my concept behind why I like it is that the team with the hammer then isn't playing for the blank. They're going to play for 2 all the time. But the team without the hammer might essentially play for a blank, because the team with the hammer is not going to blank it. They're going to take their single point. So you get a force out of playing for a blank. So it might just switch it, which is interesting concept. I just think it needs to be trialed, because I do think in theory it makes sense to me. And I've been saying that for a long time, that why wouldn't we just take this away? But the difference in doubles is the placed rocks, and it's the no hitting at all for the first few. That changes what happens, or changes the strategy as far as, you're never going to play for a blank, but you probably aren't anyway, even if the hammer didn't switch, because there's always a million rocks in play because of those rules that don't exist in men's and women's right now. I do think we should trial it, though, because I think that to me, logically, it's an easy way to generate more offense, unless Braden's right, which he might be, that then it just switches who's on the defense. Maybe the team without the hammer then goes to defense, right?
I think one thing you might see, if that's the case too, and I know this sounds backwards, but if that did happen, if Braden's correct and it flipped which team was playing defense, the way to combat that for the team with hammer would be to throw a rock on the center line where it can't be moved.
Exactly.
So now the hammer team would be throwing center guards instead to try to create action.
I've never been a fan of the no tick rule, in the sense that, like, I know it needs to exist, but I think that the corner guard tick's actually an easier shot than the center guard tick is. And we see it played in doubles all the time, and it's really not that hard to make. You just try to tap it into the house, and then you can hit it. In 4-person curling, you still can't hit it in doubles, but you tap it into the house, it's still good. But I think that if we're not doing any ticks, I almost think it should be on everything, or at least there should be a corner guard line somehow that you can't tick that rock either, because then it gives, like, you're talking about changing the power as far as the hammer team having the power or not. And that's my challenge with it, is that then so in theory the team with the hammer should have the power, but if they throw the corner guard in, it's allowed to be ticked, but the center guard isn't. You're in a way giving the advantage to the team that doesn't have the hammer.
Sure. That guard over curls a little bit there from Sarah Anderson. So with these angles, Team Nickel trying to figure out how exactly they can score more than 1 point with this setup. And I can tell the listeners too that this broadcast was never going to go any other way than Chelsea and I just going on about what we think about these rules and what shots to play and everything, as we've done a few podcasts forever and could go for about 12 hours straight probably. So we'll attempt to call a little more of the action for the end of these games too. Another interesting development though on sheet B, Podol and Perry in the 7th with their power play scored 3. So now Strauss-Casper only leading 8-7 going to the final end to play there. And that is one of the games that could bring tiebreakers into play if Podol and Perry come back, come out with a victory. Then that would bring Anderson and Richardson back into contention, as they already completed their win and have 4 wins. Stand at 4-3 after their round robin play.
Do you see any way here, Ty, that they can score more than 1? I don't see a shot that gets them.
I don't think so. No, the only way would be to cross all the way over the center line, which I believe is what they're playing, and hit red, yellow, red to make the yellow stone on the opposite side of the 4-foot count. Oh, it just hairs that rock. If that got by, they may have gotten 2. Really close. Good try there, and that will be handshakes. We will say that the shot of the day was definitely that run back double by Gabe Nickel. Long ways to run that stone and leave both out. So final score, I believe, will be 7-3. Anderson and Stopera over Nickel and Nickel. So they secure their spot in the playoffs at 5-2. They will wait to see if they are the 2 seed or the 3 seed, depending on the result of Strauss-Casper and Podol Perry over here on sheet B. Here you see the standings. TC and Dropkin now 7-0 after their win. Anderson and Stopera getting that all-important 5th win to secure the playoff spot and go to 5-2. Anderson Richardson at 4-3, keeping their hopes alive and now playing spectator for this game on Sheet B between Delaney Strauss and Danny Casper, and Podol and Nate Perry. That will be the end of our broadcast. You may switch over to the coverage of this final game that will decide the final playoff spot. Chelsea, thanks so much for doing this. People that know us know we're very good friends, so we're excited to do this game together. Chelsea obviously has quite the talent for the commentary role as well, and love to see you get more opportunities. Canada with Curling Stadium going forward, but it's been a lot of fun, Chelsea. If we line something up for the weekend for playoff games, we'll let you know. We'll be in discussion soon, but thanks for taking the time to do this, and I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of this stuff in the future.
That sounds good. It's been my pleasure. Super fun to work with you, and yeah, hopefully we get another chance pretty soon.
So if there are tiebreakers tomorrow morning, which we'll know very shortly, they will be at 9 a.m. Eastern time. That tiebreaker game would be between Delaney Strauss and Danny Casper and Taylor Anderson and Ben Richardson. If Strauss and Casper are able to win this game, hold on, they will be the 2 seed. Anderson and Stopera would be the 3 seed, and our playoff pool will be set with the quarterfinal games at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So for Tyler George and Chelsea Carey and all the Curling Stadium crew and USA Curling, thanks for watching. We will see you tomorrow.